Welcome back to the Flushing Faithful podcast. This time, we will be talking about all the trade rumors and everything else going on. As you know, the Mets already got Robinson Cano and Edwin Diaz. Now, having a closer is great, but you need a bridge to the closer. I don't know if I like the Mets' approach from last year. They just took every reliever they had and basically threw it at the wall, saw whatever stuck, and then went from there. But I also don't know if you should go with the two closers or three closers in the bullpen because eventually those guys want to leave and go somewhere and get their money. Now, if some of them take a smaller deal, that's great. Like maybe Andrew Miller, maybe David Robertson, or whoever. But everyone else is going to be looking for them too. The Mets took the best closer off the market. And technically, he wasn't even on the market. The Mets just pushed the Mariners to include him. So, what's left out there? Some ordinary closers, some guys who are at the end of bullpens, but other teams are after them too. So should you spend all that money just to complete a bullpen? I don't know. But with the Mets, I hate using the term elephant in the room, but you have the catching position. JT Realmuto is a good catcher. He hits. He's not always on the DL. But the Mets also brought back Travis d'Arnaud, who hits, but he's always on the DL. See, that's the problem. I I think d'Arnaud is okay. The problem for the Mets is when he's behind the plate, teams are going to steal. And then you have the other thing that's going on in baseball now where the steal is being devalued. So does it matter as much? I guess it does for Noah Syndergaard because they run on him all the time when d'Arnaud is behind the plate. I mean, there are ways to get a catcher better at that. d'Arnaud and Plawecki would make a decent catching combo if they can both stay on the field. And then the Marlins are going to want Nimmo, Conforto, Rosario, someone like that. And I believe the reason we're hearing about Jimenez is because the Mets hype machine saying that he's ready for the majors and all that. I think it's just a hype machine trying to build up his value. He may be ready to take the field, but I don't know if he's ready to hit like a major leaguer. And shortstop is now a position where everyone hits. Then again, every position is a position where everyone hits. But in the past, you would get away with all field, no hit shortstop. I would not make the trade with the Marlins. If it was me, I think I would keep the catching situation as it is. Next, let's move on to Noah Syndergaard. I would not trade him, not for anything. I would actually try and sign him to a deal. He's shown ace potential, but again, because players are now worried more about launch angle than being real baseball players, he has an issue. It's one that Jacob deGrom actually fixed and won a Cy Young. You have to know how to pitch to players now. You have to be able to get a fastball up in their face or wherever, somewhere besides trying to stay low in the zone. Syndergaard can still dominate as he's shown, But then there are teams who will be ready to pound, to swing when you're pounding the bottom of the strike zone. But as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't trade him, but I think what the Mets are looking at is he may want the same kind of contract DeGrom gets. If I was the Mets, I'd just say, hey, DeGrom, let's do this. 5 years, $20 million a year, right now. Takes care of 2 arbitration years and 3 free agent years. At the end of the contract, he's 35, 36, and you decide then if you want to re-sign him. And that's, of course, if he's not looking for a market-breaking deal. Same thing with Noah Syndergaard. Offer him something in the same vein. Or even play this year out and see where he is. See if he goes back to being the guy that he was. Because you also have Zach Wheeler, who I would give a contract to. He worked with DeGrom. He's back to pitching twice on the side instead of once, which helps you maintain your form. And that's probably why DeGrom was so dominant and always the same every game. And then Zach Wheeler does the same thing, and he actually had a better second half than the Cy Young winner. Nathan Eovaldi, however you pronounce his name, just got 3 years, $18 million a year. I'd go to Wheeler and see if he'd take something in the 3 years, 15 per year area, something like that. I don't think he's going to get more when he becomes a free agent, because look how long it took him to get to where he is. But he is young, and some team may actually throw the money at him. But I'm getting off track, because you also have to consider Noah Syndergaard with the contract also. Anyway, speaking of pitchers, Corey Kluber. If getting Corey Kluber is the Mets' main objective and not trading Noah, then I can see it happening. But also with the Noah Syndergaard thing, I think it may be trying to get the interests of teams and then do a bait and switch with Zach Wheeler. I could be wrong, but who knows. Anyway, back to Kluber. If you could get a 2-time Cy Young winner on your team, do it. But it looks like, again, it'll cost Nimmo or Conforto or someone like that. They most likely want Nimmo because service time. I like Nimmo. If he was traded, it wouldn't bother me too much. But I would prefer to trade Conforto if it was me. And the reason being, he's a Boris client. So he's most likely not signing a deal unless it's an over-market deal. If you want to go year to year, that's fine, but you can replace a guy like him. These days, there are plenty of players who bat .250, hit 30 home runs or whatever. And he did most of his damage in September, which can be a misnomer because guys are tired. Guys are coming up from the minors, things like that. How would a deal for Kluber work? That's most likely how you're going to have to do it. And maybe it's part of the reason that Dom Smith is in the outfield too. He can field at first, supposedly. But if he can play the outfield too, you can use him as an outfielder in a trade because he is still somewhere near the top of the prospect list. Though I don't know if you'd call him a prospect anymore. Let's see. And then a non-trade, but it could change the team, is AJ Pollock. There's so much competition for him, I don't think I would sign him. I think I would go for a professional hitter. Now, when I say that, I mean someone who can field, but can hit also. and isn't going to cost you a whole bunch of money for like 1 or 2 good years that he had. Like, say, an Adam Jones or someone. You're going to have that player platooning with Lagares, and then hopefully in the second half you get Cespedes back. At that point, you may have to move somebody. Trying to think of who you would move. I guess move Nimmo back to center field, because technically he is a center fielder. But yeah, there's a lot going on with the Mets. A lot of rumors. When Sandy Alderson was here, you heard nothing. And that's because he was doing nothing. Probably didn't even care to do anything, because he didn't want to give out big money to players. Hell, he didn't even want Cespedes. It's a good time to be a Mets fan and be excited. I just don't know if all these things are going to happen. I don't see the Mets getting a pitcher like Kluber. I could be wrong. I don't see the Mets getting the catcher like Real Muto. I think they may get a free agent like Ramos or something. The center fielder, I don't see it happening either. Maybe like an Adam Jones or someone like that who can play the position, hit a little, and also be a mentor to some of the younger players on the team, because the Mets are relatively a young team. Oh, and there's still one more person in the room who could be moved, Todd Frazier. I don't know how they would do it, but I think Jeff McNeil earned a job instead of just being a super sub. But I guess we'll see. It's nice to start hearing about the Mets again. I was so sick of Sandy Alderson and the way he went about business. You can tell he was not there to spend money or make a winning team. He got lucky one year off of players that Omar had. So, let's see what happens. I'm willing to give Brody a chance. I mean, the guy seems like he really wants to get this done and make a winning culture for this team. So let's see it happen. I'm so tired of the Mets being okay with finishing second as long as they can sell some tickets. Let's win. Alright, this has been episode 4, 5. Man, I gotta keep track of these things. Anyway, this has been Flushing Faithful Podcast, and this is Eddie signing off.